Hello, and welcome to the first installment in a new series called Scary But True. In this new series, I'm going to be narrating stories found from Reddit of true encounters. The very first installment of this is on the topic of Lyft rides. As we know with current media, it turns out that no matter if you're in a taxi, a Lyft, or an Uber, there's always a risk that the person who's driving you or the passengers they pick up along the way could do some really scary, creepy thing. With that said, let's get into this first story. Christmas Eve Lyft Ride Nightmare. This story is brought to us by Guess613. Sorry ahead of time for any format issues. I'm posting this from my cell phone. So, for context, I'm a 22-year-old male, and I live in a large city in the Midwest. Now, I drive for Lyft while putting myself through trade school. I drive for other similar companies, but that's besides the point. I have many horror stories from those as well, but I'll tell those another time. It was Christmas Eve, 2020. I was out running Lyft for a few hours before heading to my mom's with my new baby and wife. Nothing special going on for the night. Just the usual. It was a pickup from this kind of lower income apartment complex. No big deal. I arrive and I find my passenger. He has all his belongings. Several boxes of stuff. Now, my car is a 2006 Chevy Impala, so it's not too big. We get all his stuff loaded up, barely, and are on our way. During the ride, he's crying and saying his girlfriend was cheating on him, and he had walked in on them earlier that night. He couldn't stay there because it was her name on the lease. So I was taking him to a hotel. Now, in my city, we have a street that is well known for having vices. Hookers, drugs, gangs, weapons, and shady motels. The works. We get to the motel. He asks me to wait for him to check in and get his key. No problem, man. I'll confess, I break the rules a little when it comes to Lyft. I have a gun hidden in a concealed holster, secured to the underside of my driver's seat for protection. Reason being, driving Lyft and other contract apps, I've had knives and guns pulled on me, as well as people have tried to fight me, rob me, and all kinds of other things. But like I said, another time. This motel was on that street I mentioned before. Homeless people were everywhere. There was a dude on the far corner of the complex that still had a needle in his arm, passed out against the building, and I'm a big fan of true crime and horror narration, so I'm on edge. He gets his key. The whole motel is ground level, so to help the guy out, I drive to his door. As I mentioned before, he had a lot of stuff, so I started to help him unload his stuff. While on my second trip getting things, I saw a guy come out of a room just to the south of my car, followed by two ladies. They came up to the room I was next to, not my passenger's room. One of the ladies pounded on the door, then opened it. That's when I saw in. The guy raised a fucking shotgun up out of his long coat and storms into the room, the two ladies following him. Slamming the door behind them. Following, I heard a lot of yelling and shouting. I was just waiting for shots to ring out. Out of nowhere, my passenger came up behind me. "I can take this, man. Go ahead and take off. Have a Merry Christmas." And he gave me a cash tip. I didn't even notice he took the boxes out of my hands or slid a $5 bill in my pocket. I was frozen. I knew what may have been going down in that room. I had to leave, or at least get to where I could get my gun. I know the guy and both of those ladies saw me, and I know they knew I saw the gun. I had to get out of there. You know, no witnesses. I got in the car and sped away quickly. I got a block or so away and called the cops. I gave them every detail. After I got off the phone with the police, I signed out of Lyft. I hadn't made much money, but I was done. I got a call later that night. The cops investigated. They never found the gunman or the women. They never answered the door I saw them come out of. And the occupants of the room they went into said nothing had happened and that I was full of shit. Well, I know what I saw. So, to the gunman I saw with the shotgun, who I'm sure was making a statement to someone about debt, let's not meet again. Hey guys, I'm just jumping in here between stories because I wanted to talk about something really quick. I recently found this newly published author, Gage, Sears, who just recently published their first novel called The Watcher. It's a really interesting book that you can find at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Walmart, Thrift Books, and I really think you guys should check it out. Kind of paraphrasing from the Amazon website, a town where nothing bad ever happens, and things are very safe, almost too safe. And one of the last lines in it that I really like in this synopsis is, "Nothing bad ever happens in these towns. Murders, drugs, and stalkers don't come here. Those only happen in big cities, right?" If you could take a little time just to even check it out, that'd be really cool. I'm enjoying it so far. I would highly suggest that you check the book out. I have a picture of the cover that was provided to me by the author who I've spoken to a little bit. They also have it if you're not really into reading, which I'm assuming might be the case because you're listening to me read Reddit stories to you. They also have their book available on Audible for $0 with a monthly membership. I have a link to the Amazon page, and then I also have a link to their link tree where you can find all of the other ways to find their book and connect with the author. Alright, thanks so much for sticking with me through these ramblings. I'm gonna get back to reading now. Fake Lyft driver, let's not meet. This was posted by Red Ring Bear on Let's Not Meet. Something very scary happened to me at the LAX airport, and I didn't realize the gravity until this morning. Following my gut instinct saved our lives. My husband and I were in California seeing my grandma and grandpa. We were waiting for a Lyft driver to come and pick us up to take us to my grandma's house, when a man with a Lyft sticker pulled up to where we were, which was the designated rideshare pickup, and told us he was ready for new riders and could take us now. And when we were in the car, just add that we were on his route. I started to consider it as he was just, and the convenience was nice. He even took the phone from my hands and tried to cancel the Lyft we had already ordered. But it seemed weird to me, and my gut was screaming, "No, don't go." He got upset and said we wasted his time. Big eye roll. He got in his car and drove away. As he did, I took a photo of his license plate. I immediately emailed Lyft. They did an investigation, and this morning I got an email that said the license plate has never been used in their system, and they're happy I didn't go with the man. Similar things in Los Angeles have gotten people killed. Guys, my gut instinct probably saved our lives. Lyft, late at night. This story was written by Colorado Girl on Let's Not Meet. Just to give you a bit of background, I'm female and I drive for Lyft at night. I'm on the shorter side at only 5'4", and have been driving for nearly 6 months. I tend to drive downtown Denver, especially on weekends when there's the most money to be made. In this time, I've only had a couple truly scary encounters, and I drive 7 nights a week, at least a couple hours a night. The first scary one started out normally enough, late at night. I had just dropped off a passenger in Aurora and was marking my way back towards Market Street, since the bars hadn't closed yet. I get a pickup that's on the way. It's a nice enough area that I don't feel uncomfortable, but anyone who knows Aurora, Colorado, knows it's not really the best area, even with the few nice areas. A couple guys hop in, one in front, one in back. Both have on hoodies and are carrying backpacks, but this is Colorado and almost 1:30 in the morning, so not that odd. Where it gets odd is after they get in. I give my normal greeting, but they completely ignore me, shove their backpacks onto the floor, and pull their hoods up while shielding their faces from the windows with their hands. I was instantly uncomfortable, and I could feel something was off. It was only a 10-minute drive, and we were in a secluded area, so I decided the safest thing I could do was complete the ride. I could feel my fight or flight instinct kicking in. Within about a minute, I had decided if they tried anything, I was going to crash my car. Neither one of them had put on a seatbelt, so I figured that would be my best chance. Once we arrived at the location they wanted to be dropped off at, I could tell it was not a good area. Bars on the windows, trash everywhere, and cars in disrepair. They get out, but don't shut my doors and start whispering to each other while glancing at me. One of them has his hand in his pocket, fidgeting with something. I have no idea what. At this point, I've had enough and step on the gas, driving off with the doors open. I drove a couple miles until I get to a gas station with lights and peeped before I stopped to properly close both doors. I called it a night and headed home to cuddle my toddler and my husband before having a good cry in the safety of my own bed. I have no idea what they were planning, but I do know I was terrified from the moment they pulled their hoods up to the moment I drove off with my doors open. This second scary story takes place a couple weeks after the first. I'd sworn off all pickups in Aurora and the shady parts along Colfax at night. I would still drop people off there, but I would also turn my app off and leave the area when I was done. I was downtown as usual for a Saturday night and the bars were closing. I get a shared ride, which can be very good at bar closing. Now the thing about a shared ride is you can't request more than 2 seats, leaving room for 2 more people. I have on multiple occasions had a full car with these types of rides. I get to the person and unlock my doors as normal, and in get 3 people. Okay, small problem. I'm polite and tell them I can't give them a ride with 3 people, so they will have to order a different Lyft. This is where this one turns. The guy says, "I don't want to pay more." I'm sorry, but either one of you has to get out, or all of you do, and you need to order a different ride. This is a shared ride, and that means I could get 2 more passengers, and they need seats. With shared rides, you are only allowed to book 2 seats for 2 passengers. I'm not paying more, so you can just ignore the rides and take us home. At this point, he became aggressive and was putting his finger in my face. Maybe I should have been more scared. Only this is Market Street at bar close and it's packed. There are drunk people everywhere, and where there are drunk people, there are cops. I roll down my window as he continues to tell me what I'm going to do and starts threatening to, quote, put my bitch ass in its place if I don't start driving right now. I hadn't caught the whole of it since I had made eye contact with a cop and was focusing on getting his attention. Then I said, okay, you now have a new choice. You can all get out, or I could get the cop right there to get you out. Said cop was making his way over, seeing something was wrong. They all jumped out, the guy flipping me off, and they disappeared into the crowd, still looking for rides. The cop stopped to ask if I was okay, and gave him a short rundown of what happened, and thanked him for coming over. I headed off to my next ride, who was a very polite gentleman. In both cases, I reported them to Lyft, so I also carry a foam pepper spray for defense, and have a dash cam that records the interior of my car now. Since that last one, I haven't had any issues, so there's that. Creepy Lyft driver. The original poster of this story has deleted their account, so I'm unable to properly credit them, but as always, I'll have links to the stories in the description, so be sure to check that out. I live in a city with a public transportation system. They have been extremely short-staffed, and more often than not, you have to call to make sure your bus is even coming. On weekdays, during business hours, the public transit operator will order a Lyft for you to get to work if your bus isn't showing up or if they're short a driver. Tuesday, I'm at the bus stop after checking multiple times if my bus is coming, only to find out that it wasn't. They ordered me a Lyft, and this nice, older gentleman was my driver. We had casual conversation, and he started to ask personal questions. I'm a bartender, and I'm super friendly already, so I didn't think his questions were ill-intentioned. Told him I'm not married and that I'm pretty much a loner. I basically go to work and go home and spend time with family. He then says, "I'd marry you in a heartbeat." Again, I'm just thinking he's being funny or nice. I asked him to drop me at the downtown grocery so I could pick up some things I needed for work. When we stopped, he said he was joking and that he's married and has a son my age. Asked if I was maybe interested in meeting him. Since I have a terrible track record, I figured it wouldn't hurt meeting someone out of my circle and comfort zone. So I gave the man my number and we parted ways. The next morning, he texts me and asks if I needed a ride to work. I told him he didn't have to do that, and I was sure my bus was running. He said it'd be his pleasure and he'd pick me up at my house at 3. Then, about an hour later, he asked if I wanted to have lunch with him before work. I told him I was busy and that I couldn't do that. He said okay, see you at 3. He shows up at 3 and lets me know he's outside. While I'm finishing getting my things together, I open the door and he's starting to walk up my stairs to my house. I told him I was ready and we could head downtown. When I get in the back seat, he turns around and says he has a confession. He told me that from the time I'd taken off my mask, his heart danced like a butterfly. He said that he hasn't been able to stop thinking about me since the day before and that he'd love to spend time with me and that he'd pay me for my time if I spent the day with him. That's when I started to feel super uncomfortable. The whole ride was making me cringe, but I know when you're in a situation like that with a predator, playing nice is safer than freaking out. He continued on the entire ride about how he loved me at first sight and wanted to make me his Lebanese queen. As we got closer to downtown, I started to feel relief. He dropped me off at my hotel and said, "See you tomorrow." That evening, at work, I checked my phone after a busy happy hour, and he's texted me a couple times. He sent me a picture of the hotel and said he'd wait for me to get off of work to give me a ride home. I told him I already had a ride, but thank you anyways. Thursday morning, I'm out running errands with my mom and sister. He texts me and asks how early he can pick me up because he can't stop thinking about me. I asked him to please stop and that I was with family. He continues to text me all day and evening, begging to see me, telling me his heart is aching to see his Lebanese queen. I just kept saying, please stop. Friday morning, the shit hit the fan. He tells me he loves me no matter what. He said I told my wife about you and that I'm in love with you and I want a divorce. I told him to please don't do that and that it wasn't right to treat his wife that way. He said it wasn't my fault. They were drifting apart anyways. Then he said, I'm picking you up for dinner at 5:30, and I'm not taking no for an answer. I ignored the messages during the day and just went about my off day. Around 5:25, my video doorbell rings, and he's standing on my porch for at least 15 minutes. I told him I wasn't home and that he should leave. He continues to text me and beg to come pick me up from my parents. I was home the whole time, but I was too scared to let him know that. I eventually called the non-emergency police station, but he had already left by the time I got through. I filed a general report, but technically they can't do anything unless he's standing on my porch threatening me. They advised me to report through Lyft, so I did. I haven't heard anything since, but that shit was just creepy as fuck. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching till the end of the video. First of all, obviously, I want to thank all of the users of Reddit that allowed me to narrate their posts today. I do have in the works some other similar rideshare content. I want to do one on Uber, and then I have another one for Lyft that I'm working on right now. Be sure to watch out for that. Also, feel free to submit your own true spooky stories. You can message me on Reddit or through my email, which I have in my contact information below each post. Alright, everybody, I hope that you have a spooky rest of your day.